it can become like Taliban rule of Afghanistan. We don't know which faction is in control of how much of territory, because world is getting set for a roller coaster ride. Ukraine may have to somehow get reconciled to whatever is with them. America has got about 700 soldiers over there. So how long will they remain there?
So, welcome to Asianet Newsable. Today, in our book discussion section, I have an absolute honor to invite Indian Army officer, retired Lieutenant General Kamaljeet Singh. He is also former General Officer, Commander in Chief of Western Command. After retirement, he was conferred the Maharaja Ranjit Singh Chair of Excellence in Punjab University and was also appointed as advisor to CM Haryana in November 2018. Sir, I'm absolutely delighted to have you with us for discussion on your latest book, General's Jottings. I welcome you to the show.
Heena, firstly, grateful to you. It's a pleasure interacting with you, and it's some kind of a wonderful initiative you all take to bring new authors like us, uh, connect us to our readers. So thank you for this privilege and opportunity.
Thank you, sir. This acknowledgement means a lot to us. So, I want to start this discussion with Syria because this is the hot topic right now. Still, I want to talk about Syria's impact on regional stability. In your view, I want to know how does the ongoing conflict in Syria affect the broader stability of Middle East, and what consequences can we face? Especially when you talk about India's foreign policy in the region.
See, Syria is a very complex kind of an issue. You have to see it in the light of what has been happening from 7th of October. You know, it started off with Gaza, where uh, Hamas managed to convey an impression that they have put Israelis on back foot, but resilience on part of Israelis led to somewhere I'll say it is in the sense application of force has been disproportionate, but they've done it, and so they have really destroyed Hamas as well as Gaza. Whereas destruction of Gaza is questionable. It shouldn't probably have been done this way. Then they got on to southern Lebanon. They got hold of Hezbollah and they sorted them out also. And they've sanitized all area south of Litani River. So they've created buffer zone for themselves. For people who had left northern part of Israel, they will be able to return to their homes. But interestingly, what was brewing in Middle East or Levant, as we call it, for a long time, somehow it's there are multiple factors. One is that Russia was preoccupied or overstretched in the Ukrainian war. It's a critical stage. Russia can't afford to apply resources here. So Russia could not come to rescue of President Assad or former President Assad now. Similarly, Iran is also stressed. And Iran's conception of arc of fire, centered on Hamas, Hezbollah, Assad, Houthis, seems to be crumbling. And who's done it? That's still a question that has not been answered properly. One school of thought is, which is generally accepted, is that it's been basically an endeavor which has been supported by USA, and along with that, you have uh, Turkey, which has played quite a significant role, and Israel also. It's a very Turkey and Israel being on the same side tacitly is a very strange combination, a strange cocktail that is developed there. So Turkey's main purpose is to keep the Kurds in check because Kurds demand a homeland, and which affects Turkey. So all in all, uh, and in my book there is a reference to wars. In my book there is uh, an examination of current conflicts and some lessons which come out. So I am relating to those lessons, and that really says that conflicts will be festering. They'll not come to a ready end. They will degenerate into hybrid war. So my sort of prediction, if I can risk it, because it's a war where you're well advised not to, give any prediction because nothing is clear as yet. Would be that this will also not get resolved very easily. It can become like Taliban rule of Afghanistan. We don't know which faction is in control of how much of territory. There are Kurds who are in the northeastern part. Then there are the ruling alliance which has come to power, HTS, is basically affiliated to Al Qaeda faction. They have tried to sort of take a version which is more moderate, more inclusive. But how much will they retain? What kind of rule they'll put into place? Will it be a Sharia-based rule? So these are all questions which are still to be answered. And all in all, Iran has lost in a big way. Syria was one huge big linchpin for that arc of fire. Russia has lost. It's reported that Russian bases which are there may be wound up. And America has gained, Israel has gained, Turkey has gained. But for how long? You never know. This kind of regime can create problems for Israel.
So you
So,
see
Heena,
that, yeah.
It's a very complex situation.
Yeah.
And I am also, as we go along, I will request the readers to compare it with where I have given the lessons that we have drawn from the conflict. And that will be a very, if there is, I am looking for feedback also. And I'm looking at those lessons. So some of these will become very much applicable, will get validated in this conflict now.
So it is true that a lot of questions are still unanswered in respect to who, initiated this ouster of Syrian President Assad and how it all unfolded. But when you talk about that, Israel, US, and Turkey could be behind this ouster of Assad. What do you expect from the new regime which is to come in place in US in the month of January, upcoming month, when Trump will take the oath of office? Because since the ouster of Assad began, Trump has been commenting on a lot of issues. For example, today itself, Trump said that Ukraine should not fire long-range missiles inside Russia. He's taking a stand somewhere. And he's also, spoken about Syria, Ukraine, Russia. He's also mocking Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. What can we expect from the new administration?
Because world is getting set for a roller coaster ride. So what kind of ride that will be? Will it be very bumpy? It's going to be bumpy. But how bumpy it will be, we have to wait and watch. His prescription in Ukrainian conflict is to bring it to an end. He's not a great supporter of NATO concept. I don't think European nations have the clout or have the financial muscle to support Ukraine without American help. So this war may come to some kind of an end with Russia solidifying its presence in whatever they have managed to liberate till now, which are in any case Russian dominated areas. Russian speaking people live over there. And Ukraine may have to somehow get reconciled to whatever is with them. And then biggest challenge is reconstruction. How does that happen? Now, when it comes to Middle East, he is totally in support of Israel. There's no doubt about that. He's also said that Syria is not the conflict for us to get into. So he's not in favor of, America has got about 700 soldiers over there. So how long will they remain there? Or will they, even if they remain, they may not get actively involved. And as regards the ceasefire, which the world is looking for, you have some kind of truce developing with Hezbollah. But for Gaza, whole world hopes that there is a two-nation solution, and Palestinians also have a nation of theirs. But Trump is unlikely to support it. Trump will play along with Israelis completely. So, like you, all of us are worried in the sense, how irrational will he get, to call to a president of a country or a prime minister of a country comes to you, to your retreat, you have dinner with that person, and then you tweet like that. So that's irrationality of highest order. But he loves it. He loves it. But I hope his bark is less toxic than the bite. So what he's been saying, some of it, I hope, turns out to be bluffing. And when you sit in power, when you become the president, when you know that you have larger responsibilities, then I hope he doesn't behave so irrational.
So, in your book, General's Jottings, you also speak about clash of corridors. Can you talk a little bit about that? What is that clash between BRI and IMEC, which is India, Middle East, Europe corridor that you talk about, and what can it mean for India and its strategic interests?
See, Heena, we've all been used to clash of civilization. We've heard about that. Samuel Huntington said that. So civilizations were at loggerheads, have been at loggerheads. Now, how do civilizations prosecute or proliferate their influence? They need connectivity and corridors, which are transportation corridors. Now, these corridors are also becoming multi-faceted corridors. You have cyber corridors, you have pipelines, you have, cyber like digital pipelines, you have energy, you have health corridors. So multifaceted corridors are coming up today. So coming to when BRI was announced, India did not join. India is the only major country which has studiously abstained from all deliberations of BRI. Because India's case is that CPEC, which is a part of BRI, violates the sovereignty of India because it runs through unsettled portions of Pak-occupied Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, and those areas. There are projects over there. So India has rightly said that CPEC, China-Pak Economic Corridor, violates our sovereignty. Now, BRI, though it is described as an economic or geo-economic initiative. But really, it is a measure to proliferate influence and power, radiate power. So by this method, China has increased dependencies of various countries on them. So countries have got caught into debt trap. They have got linked to Chinese supply chains. It's become difficult to now decouple from there. And there are also, when you do cyber corridor, cyber dependency, so national security is also at stake. So Huawei has got huge big footprint in Africa, China, and China is involved in construction work in about 45 ports across the world. So all this is giving China a footprint, a measure of influence, and naturally India is worried. And the alignment of CPEC is disturbing for us because, as we know, China and Pakistan describe themselves as inseparable kind of allies, sweeter than honey, higher than highest mountain, deeper than deepest ocean. Such, phraseology is used for this relationship. Actually, it is not true. It is a master and client relationship. In my book also, I have said that it is colonizing Pakistan economically by China. That is what it amounts to. And so we are worried because Gwadar, which is on Makran coast, gives Chinese a kind of presence to dominate the sea lanes and maritime corridors which are energy corridors. Our energy is transported over there. So what is India doing? India is trying to develop alternate connectivities. We have a stake in Chabahar, which is the port in Iran. And incidentally, China is also there. We are also trying to get into, or we have taken part in international north-south transportation corridor, which starts from Bandar Abbas, goes to Caspian Sea, Bandar Anzali, from there goes to Astrakhan, and then on to Petersburg, because we have huge big trade relationship with Russia. And that is cheaper. It saves about 4 days, 4 to 5 days. We are now also working towards IMEC, which is India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Now, that is stalled currently, but whenever it finds traction, it is again going to save about 3 days from conventional route compared to that. It'll be cheaper. And as you know, Suez Canal has got, it's like there is a traffic jam there. There's queuing. So it will help us to get over that. In my book, I've discussed this, and I've also described various corridors. So we have to look at them very carefully. There is also, if you know, there is also China-Myanmar economic corridor. China is also trying to make a corridor into Nepal, all around us. So we also have to find answers.
Sir, you briefly spoke about cyber warfare and you linked it with the national security issue. How can militaries, and especially when I talk about Indian military, combat these issues, these modern ways of warfare?
See, cyber warfare traditionally, like most of the things, it'll surprise you that most research in America started with a thing called as ARPA, Army Research Project Agency. Even internet came from there. They started ARPANET and then it became internet. later. And then ARPA became DARPA, Defense Advanced Project Research Agency. Now, similarly, cyber warfare traditionally has been handled by army formations, like or army entities. America has got a full cyber command. It's a full command, like our strategic forces command, like that it is. China is famous for this. And so, firstly, army has a role. It's a multi-agency concern in India. In India, it's not only being done by army or armed forces, but the National Cyber Security Coordinator has been from armed forces because we have the largest domain competence and awareness. So if you remember, Jal Pant used to be the first cyber security coordinator. Now he has given charge to Jal Nair, who's looking after this. And then you have various agencies like NTRO, CERTIN, they're all networked into it. But then somebody has to put it together. And coordination has to be done. And it's not an empty threat. People talk about why did the power supply to our transportation rail corridor got disrupted. Why did in Mumbai during COVID times, why did power supply suffer outage? Or how did AIMS computer get hacked? Who did it? So all this people say are showing Chinese footprint. So this threat is real, and we have to be, and it starts with your hardware configuration. That you have to make sure that your components are not carrying a device or a bug, something which will pass the information back. And then it goes into software, it goes into the linkages. So armed forces have certain amount of competence in this. But in my book, I have also debunked the famous myth that Chinese have such asymmetry over us that they will bring microwave weapons and fry us. Nothing like that has happened. We've been having a standoff. They said Chinese will fry drones by hundreds and they will carry noodles, hot noodles to their soldiers. Nothing like that is happening. Because in high altitude, technology has a limitation. Where we are currently facing Chinese. It's not so easy. So drones have limitation. Surveillance devices have limitation. Heena, you see, when we did Operation Snow Leopard in September 2020, I think, after Galwan, few months after Galwan, which is called as quid pro quo operations, and we occupied Kailash Heights. We surprised Chinese. China had all the surveillance, but they couldn't pick us up. So there is asymmetry between Chinese and us in technology, but we have to relate it to terrain where it is being applied and the limitations of technology. So let me assure your viewers and my readers who read this book that I have, this is a very nice thing in my book. And I would request you all to read this. And it will also make you feel proud about it is coping with Chinese techno-cyber. I have said large amounts of this are psychological work. So we shouldn't, I have also described that Chinese are not 10 feet tall. They are human beings. I have faced them in Sikkim. So I know what it is. I'll read this The myth of Chinese technical asymmetry being decisive is largely debunked. Indian forces have been able to execute their missions effectively. However, complacency on this account cannot be allowed in future, and our efforts must remain focused on technical modernization. So this is the key takeaway I've given there. But I've described all.
So basically, you are saying that uh, this thing is a myth, that there is a asymmetry, and what is being boasted about Chinese military. But you also say that complacency must not prevail.
See, Heena, I'll qualify myself. I am saying that asymmetry is not the kind which will make us ineffective.
Yes.
It's not so huge. We have our own countermeasures, so we are not paralyzed because of it. But the initial hype was that we will get completely paralyzed, all our networks will stop working, all that did.
But that is, again, sir, I would say it has become a norm that the psychological warfare is also very much in place. It's not only with China, I think with a lot of countries who are at war right now, I think this factor is very much there.
Yeah, and I have discussed it in my book also. You see, in UN mission, we were next to Sudan. In Sudan, we were next to Chinese battalion. We rescued Chinese. They're not great fighters. So we have to have courage. Our soldiers are good. We have to remain invested in our capability building and attempt to reduce the asymmetry. Lots of it is discussed in this book.
So I have two more questions to ask you. The first one, which I want to talk about, is how do you assess India's neighbor right now, the geopolitical situation that India is surrounded with? If you can just speak a little bit about that.
See, we have a policy called as neighborhood first. But unfortunately, we have not been able to find great traction in that policy. If I was to go in a kind of a sequential manner, so if we start with our neighbors, if we first take Afghanistan, we are on good wicket. We are having better relationship, though we have not established full diplomatic ties, but they are the initial thing that Taliban will be totally anti-India is not there. And they are quite warming up to us. And we have great relationship with people of Afghanistan. We may not approve of what Taliban is doing, but they are the government in power. Next, we come to Pakistan. With Pakistan, we have this policy that we will not talk to them till they stop aiding proxy war. Now, it's not as if we are not really having zero engagement with them. If it was true, in my book also I mentioned, if it was true, then how is it that we had a ceasefire in 2021 on LAC? How did that ceasefire get revived? There were talks in UAE, mediated by Emirates. So my prescription in this book is also that while this policy was good, maybe there is a time to revisit. It has probably run its course. And it may be worthwhile to do some negotiations, but decide on what you want to negotiate. We will not talk about Kashmir. We will not talk about this, but we can talk about trade and other things. Like that, we can think of doing it. Because in Pakistan, the people are already saying that, see India, how much of progress PM Modi and India has made. Why can't we do it in Pakistan? They're questioning their government. Okay, let's quickly jump to Nepal. Now in Nepal, unfortunately, the coalitions which are coming to power always have an element of Communist Party. There are two of them. So they also come into this thing. Now, those two parties have a leaning towards China. And Nepali Congress and Madhesis are inclined towards India. Now, here also we have issues about Kalapani, Limpidara, border-related issues. So, the best is to remain engaged with them and somehow claw our way back. Some of it is happening, but more needs to be done. Let's get to Bhutan. No major problems, but China is making forays. China wants to settle the boundary dispute with Bhutan. China also wants to set up diplomatic ties with Bhutan. So here India will have to remain vigilant, convince Bhutan to go slow, not give in to China's, coercion. Myanmar is a bad case. It's in a bad way. There is ethnic war going on, and that has stalled our Act East policy. And China is very active there. China is engaged with ethnic groups also and with the armed forces. India is not being able to take a clear line. It is not against the military junta, but it's not even for the pro-democracy forces. So there is this thing. We get down to Sri Lanka. Once again, the problem is party in power JVP. It is a JVP affiliate. This party has traditionally been anti-Indian. But there are some hopeful signs. Anurag Kumara Desanaike is coming to India, the first foreign visit, and India has bailed them out in the financial crisis. So let's hope we are able to make some, repair our relationships with them. Maldives, we have managed to somehow get them back, but we have to remain vigilant. Now, also, the problem is the regional mechanisms which are there, SARC, is not working. So should we revive SARC? And the truth is, while we are being blamed for stalling SARC. And what China is doing is every year or twice in a year, they had meeting of all the nations of SARC except India. And all people go. And some people go from India also. Some who are, not so favorably inclined to, who say they are intellectuals or something. So then there was a grouping called as BBI, which is Bangla, Bhutan, India, Nepal. That is also stalled. BIMSTEC, I don't know, not much. So all these regional groupings have also come to some kind of, they become dormant or become ineffective. There's a need to revive all this if we really want to. And my prescription is we have to think long term. And I was missing out Bangladesh. Sorry. Bangladesh has become a test case for us. It's something where we'll have to give up our sense of entitlement. We'll have to accept the new reality and somehow, claw our way back. So all in all, the basic thing is, firstly, we have to somehow learn to live with Chinese footprint, yet carve out influence or place for ourselves. We have to think long-term, strategic. Don't get too alarmed by tactical action, because if we want to be a great power, we cannot be episodic. We cannot, after every episode, we should not start saying we'll call back our ambassador and all this. Let's remain engaged. Engagement is the only way forward. We have strengths, we have capabilities, and also whatever infrastructure work we promise these countries, we should finish it in time. Chinese have a great reputation on this. We have a poor reputation. Our projects keep languishing because of bureaucracy and other things. So we have to ramp up our act in our neighborhood. There were many of them. In the sense, you can't say only one. There are many of them. Like, let me go back to when I was a corps commander in Sikkim. Let me relate it to the China, which is our primary adversary. Now we had to induct an armored regiment. That was the first armored regiment going to the Kerang Plateau, opposite China. Now, it was happening at its own pace when I took over as corps commander. The commanding officer was sitting in his rear, and he said, my second in command is doing it. So first thing I did is I told him, I said, the day your 10th tank crosses over, you will move up. He said, sir, I am winding up. I said, stop it. You're not doing that. There were many strange obstacles were being put. Like, they have a simulator which had to go up. They said, sir, it can't go up. The roads don't allow. I said, okay, you take that vehicle, you make a mock-up and take the mock-up. Let me see. So would you believe it? That thing had been stalled for 2 years because even the mechanized infantry battalion had not taken their simulator up. So only at 2 places, road had little problem, which was doable. We did that. And it was there. So you have to put your foot down. And there also, like I told my people, there were certain places like it was called Giagong Gap, Kerang Gap. I said, no, it's not a gap. It's a trap. Let the Chinese come here. We will kill them. Make them a trap for Chinese. It may sound just play of words, but you can change the psyche of people. So I did, and I feel good about it in the sense, without starting a war, you have to keep your forces ready and primed up.
Again, and I request all of the viewers of Asianet Newsable and across the nation to read this book by Lieutenant General Retired Kamaljeet Singh. The book is titled General's Jottings. And so thank you so much for connecting with us.
This book is like a primer. You want to understand any issue which is contemporary, troubling you, like Indus Water Treaty, CPAC, BRI, proxy war in Kashmir, or China. Open this book. It's got large amount of reference material, map, charts, tables, interesting compilations, and it is all chapterized. So you can open that chapter and refer to that. Good book if you want to understand national security issues